Hello YouTubers, I am Dragonhawk Mark 7. I am here to show you the homemade M9 slot. So, M9 plastic slot.
It was June 2nd, 2019, and the calm around Thunderbird Falls in Alaska was broken by something horrific. The area is known for its peaceful trails and rushing waters, but that day, a group of people stumbled across something no one ever expects to see on a weekend hike. Floating in the Eklutna River was the body of 19-year-old Cynthia Hoffman. Her hands and feet were bound with duct tape, and a single gunshot wound to the back of her head left no doubt. This wasn't some tragic accident. This was murder. News of the discovery spread fast and it shocked Anchorage. This wasn't the kind of place where you expect to find bodies dumped, and Cynthia? She wasn't the kind of girl anyone could imagine being the target of such a cold act. Back home, her father, Tim Hoffman, was already in panic mode. Cynthia had promised she'd be back the day before. She never was the type to disappear without calling. Tim felt it in his bones. Something was wrong. A parent's gut instinct. He told police he knew his daughter was in danger even before anyone else seemed to believe him, and tragically he was right. So, who was Cynthia Hoffman? She was 19, a young woman who grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. Cynthia was the kind of person people described as trusting, maybe too trusting. She had a learning disability, which made her more vulnerable, but she never let that stop her from wanting connection, wanting friends, wanting to just live like anyone else her age. She leaned on her dad, Tim, a lot. They were close, and he was protective. He knew the world wasn't always kind, and he worried about her. But Cynthia? She just wanted to believe people were good. And then there was Denali Bramer. Cynthia thought Denali was her best friend. They hung out, they laughed, they shared things like close friends do. Or at least Cynthia thought so. Denali wasn't just a friend. She was someone Cynthia trusted completely. That's why, when Denali suggested they all go for a hike one weekend with some friends, Cynthia said yes without hesitation. The sad reality that trust would turn out to be the very thing that led Cynthia straight into danger. Because while Cynthia was excited for a day out with people she thought cared about her, Denali had other plans. Dangerous plans. Plans that had absolutely nothing to do with friendship. Denali Bramer wasn't acting alone. Behind the scenes, there was someone else pulling strings. A man she thought she was in love with. Online, he went by Tyler, but his real name was Darren Shillmiller, a 21-year-old from Indiana. Here's the thing. Darren wasn't the good-looking, wealthy guy he pretended to be. He was catfishing Denali. He tricked her into believing he was rich, that he could take care of her, that he loved her, and Denali bought into it. Completely. She started believing everything he said, even when his requests got darker and darker. Darren didn't just want attention, he wanted control. He began feeding Denali ideas, fantasies about violence, about hurting people. And Denali, instead of cutting him off or recognizing the danger, went along with it. She believed if she did what he asked, she'd finally have the relationship, the money, the future he dangled in front of her like bait. And what he asked for next was chilling. Darren wanted her to kill someone and film it. A murder for hire, but with the sick twist of it being entertainment. And the person Denali chose, the girl who trusted her the most, Cynthia Hoffman. Denali had convinced herself this was all going to pay off. Darren promised her millions, yes, millions, if she followed through. He told her he'd give her $9 million for the murder. It was absurd, but Denali believed it. She thought this was her chance at money, love, and a future that seemed out of reach otherwise. So the plan started to take shape. Denali didn't work alone. She pulled in a few of her friends, teenagers mostly, kids who were too young and too reckless to even fully process what they were agreeing to. One of them was 16-year-old Caden McIntosh. Another was 19-year-old Caleb Leyland. Together they formed this dangerous little circle, all caught up in Darren's twisted fantasy and Denali's promises of big money. And the target was Cynthia. On June 2nd, Denali invited Cynthia on a hike to Thunderbird Falls, a scenic trail that sounded like the perfect weekend hangout. Cynthia, being who she was, trusting, hopeful, eager to be included, said yes. She thought she was spending time with her best friend. She thought this was just another adventure. But as the group set out on the trail, only Denali and her crew knew the truth. Cynthia wasn't meant to make it back home. At Thunderbird Falls, what started as a hike quickly turned into betrayal. Cynthia had no idea that the people walking beside her were plotting her death. Denali, the friend she trusted most, led her along the trail while 16-year-old Caden McIntosh carried the gun. When they reached a secluded spot near the water, everything changed. Cynthia was tied up with duct tape, her hands, her mouth, her ankles, confused, scared, and still trying to understand why her friends were doing this. Denali recorded on her phone, sending the footage to Darren as proof, while Caden pulled the trigger, shooting Cynthia in the back of the head. Just like that, her life was gone. The group then pushed her body into the riverbank, leaving her there like she didn't matter, like she wasn't a daughter, a friend, a human being. Afterward, they pretended nothing had happened, driving away and trying to act normal, even stopping for fast food as if the murder was just another part of their day. Cynthia's last moments were filled with betrayal, pain, and fear, caused not by strangers, but by the people she believed were her closest companions. 2 days later, Cynthia's body was found near Thunderbird Falls, duct tape still clinging to her wrists and ankles, a haunting sign of the cruelty she endured. The discovery sent shockwaves through Anchorage, and investigators immediately began piecing together her last known movements. It didn't take long for suspicion to turn toward Denali, the friend who had been with her that day. When detectives brought her in for questioning, Denali's story unravelled quickly. At first she lied, claiming Cynthia had simply wandered off, but the evidence and inconsistencies were too strong. Cornered, she eventually admitted what happened, though she tried to shift blame, saying Caden fired the fatal shot. As her phone was examined, the truth became undeniable. Messages with Darren Shillmiller revealed the murder-for-hire plot, the promises of money, and the chilling videos she had sent him during Cynthia's final moments. The digital trail laid everything bare, exposing the cold manipulation from Darren and the shocking willingness of Denali and her friends to follow through. Anchorage police now had their killers, but the horror of how callously Cynthia's life was taken left a scar that no arrests could ever erase. When the case finally went to trial, the details stunned the courtroom. Darren Shillmiller, the man behind the messages, was exposed as a manipulator living thousands of miles away in Indiana. He had pretended to be rich, promising Denali millions if she carried out his sick fantasy. But in reality, he had no money, just a twisted obsession. Denali was painted as both a victim of manipulation and the driving force behind the plan, but the facts were clear. She lured Cynthia to her death and played a direct role in filming it. Caden McIntosh, only 16, was revealed as the one who pulled the trigger, and Caleb Leyland was shown to have provided the getaway car. One by one, they faced the justice system. Darren pled guilty to child pornography and murder-for-hire charges, while Denali herself eventually pled guilty to murder and was sentenced to decades in prison. Caden, tried as an adult, was also handed a long sentence, his youth offering little shield from the gravity of the crime. For Cynthia's family, the trials brought justice but not peace. They had lost their daughter, their sister, their friend to a betrayal so deep it defied explanation.